Hello students, welcome to School Study. In this video, we are going to read yet another and amazing and interesting chapter, the fundamental unit of life, the cell. So the introduction of the cell is: the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life of all living organisms. It is considered as the building block of the body. All living things are made up of one or more than one cells. All cells, whether they exist in one or more than one cell, are capable of carrying out certain basic functions such as growth, respiration, nutrition, and even reproduction. They can grow cells of their own kind. Let's check an activity to observe a cell with onion peel. It is the most common activity. So first, take a piece of onion, bend it to remove the transparent membranous structure called onion epidermal peel. Third is, with the help of forceps, remove the peel from its inner side. Next, place the peel in water in a watch glass. Add a few drops of stained saffronin to the watch glass for staining it. Now, wash the leaf peel with water and transfer it onto a clean slide with the help of a brush. To this slide, add a few drops of glycerin over the peel and place the cover slip in a manner to avoid entry of air bubbles. Now, examine it under a microscope. You will observe block-like structure in peel. You can also observe nucleus, cell wall, and cytoplasm in the cell. These structures look similar to each other and they together form a big structure like an onion bulb. Now, let's read about the unicellular and the multicellular organisms. So, unicellular organisms that are made up of only one cell. Organisms that are made up of only one cell are called unicellular organisms. All activities of the cell, whether that is nutrition, reproduction, growth, respiration, took place only in one cell. The example of unicellular organisms are amoeba, yeast, and bacteria. Next is multicellular organism. Organisms that are made up of two or more than two cells are called multicellular organisms. A single cell performs one or few activities of the cell. In these organisms, cells combine to form tissue, tissue combines to form organs, organs combines to form organ system, and organ system combines to form an organism. Some examples of multicellular organisms are cats, humans, and dogs. Let's see first what is a microscope, because it is a very important device in discovery of the cell. A microscope is a piece of scientific equipment that helps us to see things that are invisible to the naked eyes. We cannot see them with the help of our naked eyes because they are so small. There are two common types of microscope. First is light or compound microscope. You may have observed this microscope on your science lab. A compound microscope is an instrument that is used to view magnified images of small objects on a glass slide. Second is electron microscope. An electron microscope is a very large instrument that uses electromagnets for magnification and electrons for illumination. We can observe ultrastructures also under an electron microscope that are not visible to us clearly even with a compound microscope. We can watch them in electron microscope. Let's learn about the history of cell. A scientist named Robert Hooke in 1665 observed slices of cork. Now, what is cork? Cork was used as the cap of bottles in ancient time. It was made from bark of tree. He observed cork slices under a compound microscope that was made by Robert Hooke himself. He observed a number of tiny compartments that look like honeycomb. He gave the name cell to each of the boxes. Cells in Latin means little room. He observed the dead cells of plants. But his discovery was important because it indicates the first time that living organisms are made up of smaller units called cells. Then in 1674, a scientist named Anton van Leeuwenhoek observed living cells for first time. He observed sperms of animals and also observed living plant cells. Then in 1831, a Scottish botanist named Robert Brown discovered and named nucleus in the cell. In 1838 and 1839, scientists named Theodor Schwann and Jacob Matthias Lydon gave the term cell theory. What is cell theory? We will study later in this video. Then in 1839, Purkinje discovered protoplasm in the cell. He observed jelly-like structure inside the cell and gave the term protoplasm. Then in 1932, Knoll and Ruska discovered electron microscope, which we have studied earlier. It was an important discovery because now we were able to see ultrastructure also under a microscope. Let's see what is cell theory. The cell theory was a theory that was given by Schwann and Sladen in 1838 and 1839. It comprises of following postulates. First is, all organisms are composed of cells and cell products. All organisms are made up of cell. Second is, the cell is the structural and functional unit of life in organism. Third is, all cells came from pre-existing cells. Cells divide to form a new cell. So we can say that all cells came from a pre-existing cell. Then every organism starts its life as a single cell. But viruses are an exception because it is not a cell. All living things present in Earth can be classified into two types. First is non-cellular organisms and second is cellular organisms. Organisms that do not contain any cell in their body are called non-cellular organism. For example, viruses. Cellular organism. Organisms that contain either one or many cells in their bodies are called cellular organisms. For example, amoeba, humans, bacteria, etc. Cellular organisms are divided into two types. First is prokaryotes and second is eukaryotes. Let's learn about prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So first is prokaryotic cells. The cells in which nuclear material is not surrounded by a nuclear membrane are called prokaryotic cells. For example, virus, bacteria and blue-green alga. Organisms that have prokaryotic cells are called prokaryotes. Next is eukaryotic cells. The cells in which nuclear material is surrounded by a nuclear membrane is called as eukaryotic cells. For example, human cells and plant cells. Or we can say that except virus, bacteria and blue-green alga, all the cells are eukaryotic cells. Organisms that have eukaryotic cells are called eukaryotes. Let's learn about the division of liver between the cell. One organism have cells of different types. This is due to fact that there is division of liver within multicellular organism such as humans. This means different parts perform different functions. Humans have stomach to digest food, skeleton muscle for movement and locomotion, heart to pump blood, etc. Like the human body, cell itself got division of liver. It has certain organelles called cell organelles that perform different functions, such as ribosomes help in protein synthesis, lysosomes help in clearing waste material. So, we can say that these organelles combine to form the cell. Next is cell shape. Living organisms are made up of variety of different types of cells. A unicellular organism differs in shape from another unicellular organism. Thus, we can say that an amoeba is different from that of a yeast. In multicellular organisms, there are variety of cells that perform different functions. The shape of cell usually depends upon the function that they perform. For example, have you ever imagined that why nerve cells are long and branched? Nerve cells are long and branched because their shape enables them to send messages over long distance in the body. The spherical shape of red blood cells provides more surface area for absorption of oxygen. So, we can say that cell shape depends upon the function that they perform. Next is cell sizes. The size of cells differ from organism to organism. The size of cell vary from a micron to few centimeter. Some cells are microscopic and can only be seen under a microscope, whereas some cells are visible to naked eyes also. For example, mycoplasma is the smallest cell that measures about 0.1 to 0.5 micrometer, whereas the egg of an ostrich is the largest animal cell, which measures about 18 centimeter. Next is cell volume. The volume or the weight of cell is independent to the size of organism. The difference in weight of organism depends upon the number of cells present in them, not on the volume of cells. Thus, we can say that the cells of an elephant are not necessarily larger than those of a cat or a dog. The large size of an elephant is due to the large number of cells present in its body, whereas the small size of a dog is due to the less number of cells present in its body. So, we can say that the size of organism depends upon the number of cell, not on the volume of the cell. Next is cell number. We know that in unicellular organism, the number of cells is only 1, whereas in multicellular organism, the number of cells depends upon the size of organism. For example, bacteria is a unicellular organism as it is made up of only one cell, whereas humans and animals are multicellular organisms. They have countless number of cells. In human being, number of cells estimated is about 100 trillion or more. In the next video, we are going to read about 3 major functional regions of the cell: the cell membrane and the cell wall, the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon.